It's time for Pet Files, Ask the Vet, underwritten by the Millerton Veterinary Practice, traditional small animal medicine and surgery, chiropractic, laser therapy, acupuncture, and Chinese herbal medicine. 518-789-3440, millertonvet.com. With us today, Dr. Carolyn Cannon, owner and chief vet at the Millerton Veterinary Practice. We are always happy to have you. Hello, Dr. Cannon.
Good morning. Hello. Happy to be here.
That's so great. I don't even know where to begin with this. So you, as the expert, this comes from Maitland in Las Cruces, New Mexico, of all things. I do fostering for a house rabbit rescue network. Plus, I have 4 beautiful buns of my own. Everybody at the rescue is talking about this bunny Ebola that's in the news, and we're really frightened. Also, like many shelters, we're seeing a lot of people looking to adopt, and we're not sure what to tell folks looking to adopt at this time. We'd like a thorough briefing from an expert. What do you know about bunny Ebola, and how should we be dealing with it?
What I know about this disease is really what I learned in vet school, one of those obscure things that I learned in vet school. It's called rabbit hemorrhagic disease. And it was something that I had never seen. There currently is an outbreak in the Southwest, so this is where New Mexico comes in. It is, I learned about it as a disease of domestic rabbits that we have to watch for, as potential USDA veterinarians when we graduated, kind of thing. So it is of concern throughout the United States for domestic pets, but apparently this has gotten into the wildlife population and killed off, thousands and thousands of rabbits. So all kinds of rabbits in the Southwest. And the outbreak occurred in a couple of different states. I know New Mexico's having lots of trouble with it. And, the people who raise rabbits for food, especially, a lot of them have been wiped out. And the USDA, of course, trying to stop this virus. So there's no cure for the disease. Most of the rabbits die. A lot of them just die acutely with no symptoms at all. And it's a virus that's really hard to kill, lives a long time in the environment, and spreads super easily. So you can spread it from rabbit to rabbit. You can spread it on your shoes. If you have, hair on your clothes, potentially spread by people, but not infectious to people. As far as I know, it's only infectious to rabbits. And so some of the states in the Southwest are calling for if there is a case in a rabbit nest, they call it, then they're calling to euthanize all of the animals, even if they're showing healthy, because they've all been exposed. And this is a way epidemiologists stop the spread of super contagious diseases. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. And I think that we will leave it to there and let people do their own field work from that point on. Oh, and it's also reminded you it reminds me of the hoof and mouth, the foot and mouth outbreak in UK X number of years ago. I don't. It's one of the things about managing disease that you would think that people had more awareness of, especially in these, especially now that we've had our very own recent pandemic. But sadly,
yeah. Well, this generation, we have eliminated the veterinarians in this country have eliminated in conjunction with the USDA so many infectious and contagious diseases and kept them from coming back into the country. So it's not something that's, even in the younger farmers, that's in the forefront of their minds, because they haven't seen tuberculosis and they haven't seen, some of these really horrible diseases that go through the cattle population, pig population, et cetera.
Yeah.
But here we go again.
All right. Is there a trustworthy, consolidated, and frequently updated source of information about COVID-19 and pets? If there's one out there, you have to be a vet to access. If there's one out there that you have to be a vet to access, fine. That way I can ask my vet if he is reading it. But if there's one out there that regular people can access, even better. And that's from Casey in Middletown, New York.
Yeah, avma.org. So the American Veterinary Medical Association, they have a lot of information for everybody, and they update it frequently, and it all talks about pets and COVID-19 and the, all about transmission and all the things that people are worried about. So it's a good read, and there's more information there than I have even looked at. So that would be my suggestion.
And are lots of somebody just told me today about someone who had people are going out because they are lonely and acquiring or rescuing or which is great. But this person who is in California just said, and so-and-so's puppy just bit me when I got it. We went to meet the new puppy, and the puppy bit me. And, calm them down, etc. But the bottom line is that there are wonderful adverts and so forth, but for people who are just getting pets for the first time, they seem to not be connecting the amount of this is just from experience, this is empirical, but I am seeing more of it than I would want. They sort of plan to overlay the pet, the new critter, onto their existing schedule rather than understanding that the introduction of a pet into a household, no matter locked down or not, requires certain adjustments to routine. And nobody seems to want to hear about it, but what we seem to be developing is some boundary-free pets. I'm trying to be diplomatic.
There are major adjustments to make in order to raise a puppy correctly.
Yeah.
And one of them is not sleeping as much as you used to.
Right. And
getting up really early and going outside. And in your skivvies, as my father would say.
That's right.
Can't tell you the number of nights my father chased the horses out in the neighborhood in his skivvies.
One of my favorite stories from up here, and one that just fully endeared me to this person was he had one walkabout cow who was traditionally working her way down the mountain and down the road. It was a long road, but it did. If she got going, it would get to Route 44. And one morning he jumped up because he saw out the window the wrong way the cow heading down the road, and he wasn't wearing his skivvies. He just had a broom, and he said, "I was outside." Chasing the cat, trying to get and he said, I just really, really hoped that no one else was coming up the driveway. But yeah. No, it's a whole, you can be in the middle of a conversation or a Zoom meeting and suddenly have to go. And so just a word of, as somebody used to say, a word. So, all right. So long, short, avma.org. Diana in Bantam, Budsky is a 6.5-year-old neutered mutt, and I've always thought that he had some bloodhound in him on account of the way his front legs are a bit turned out. Not like a ballerina in first position the way a real bloodhound has, but about a quarter of the way. Anyway, over the past couple of years, Budsky's legs are getting a lot more turned out than they used to be. He doesn't seem like it hurts him now, but I'm concerned that it might start.
So if a 6.5-year-old crossbreed dog, so if in fact the front legs is called a valgus deformity when the legs turn out like that, my husband walks like that too, and sort of duck-footed in people, but it can be with the front legs anyway that. Over time that there's some arthritis has developed. So it is when your anatomy is imperfect. Over time, the biomechanics are imperfect, and so you can have a tendency to make osteoarthritis in those, to make excuse me, the manifestations of osteoarthritis, so inflammation in the joints, chronic inflammation, body lays down calcium deposits and trying to stabilize the joints. So it's possible that there's some arthritis in those elbows and or that there's loss of muscle, the muscles that stabilize the upper leg, that are allowing the legs to roll out. If they're a little bit turned out more, as long as your dog's not lame, I would talk to your veterinarian about putting your dog on one of the joint supplements that would help to maintain a healthy joint, and or talk to a rehabilitation therapist, canine rehabilitation therapist, who could help to restore muscle to keep this issue from becoming worse and causing pain over time. Because 6.5 is not very old, and you want to have a really comfortable dog into older age so that you can avoid, these arthritis medications as long as possible.
Right. And does weight have anything to do with this one, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Well, weight has to do with any kind of discomfort in the front or back legs and the back. So keeping your dog fit. So, what you need is an evaluation telling you whether you should, be working on moderate exercise, or whether it's okay to have your dog do whatever he or she wants to do. Maybe swimming would be a good idea for trying to keep those legs straighter, building up some muscle in order to turn the legs back or hold them so that they're not turning out more and more over time. So there are things that can be done, and I think it's a great idea right now to have noticed that and to take preemptive measures to keep your dog from having some really severe changes as he or she ages, because it's, an ounce of prevention anyway. Everybody knows about that.
Do they know the rest of it? Worth a pound of cure? I wonder if they do. We're doing a sort of old-fashioned. We're doing newfangled and old-fashioned simultaneously.
Yeah, you can tell how old we are. Huh?
That's right, because we know what skivvies are, and we know we know that proverb. Ryan in New York City. I am a first-time cat owner, and something I need advice about is hairballs. Cody is a big, long-haired guy who the shelter told me is probably Maine Coon cat. He's about 8 or 9 years old. I knew that cats got hairballs, but I don't know how often is considered normal. I've had him since March, and so far I'd say he averages 3 times a month.
So the vomiting of hair, excuse me, I'm assuming that they're talking about.
That's what it sounds like.
Vomiting up the hair.
Yeah.
And it's usually in the shape of the esophagus, so it'll be tubular in shape. Excuse me. And
have a hairball?
Yeah, I have a hairball. Can you tell?
Perfect.
I've been grooming my cats. And they do this from grooming. So it's normal cat grooming. They have a very sandpapery tongue, rough edges. They're able to groom themselves, and they're able and willing and want to keep themselves very nice and shiny. They're fastidious creatures. And so it's a normal process that the cats will ingest hair. Cats with long hair tend to ingest more hair, of course. So the hair is not digestible. So normally small amounts of it would pass from the stomach and leave in the stool. But if you've got a large amount of it, then sometimes it can ball up in the stomach. And it comes back up maybe once a week. If you have a really long-haired cat with lots of hair, maybe twice a week. So some long-haired cats have that thick undercoat and others don't. And if you've got the long guard hairs and the thick undercoat, that's a lot of hairballs. It's a lot of hair to deal with. So doing some brushing, it's a bonding time for you. If you find a really nice soft brush, doing brushing a couple of times a week would be a wonderful thing to help. They're still going to groom and get some hair, but it prevents that huge amount of hair. And as many hair, can prevent, can lead to fewer hairball vomiting around the house. A high-fiber diet can help as well. You want to talk to your veterinarian about that. Other than that, it is a normal, it's a normal process. Hairballs can also cause constipation if a lot of hair passes into the colon. If your cat is somewhat prone to constipation, then that's a possibility. And it also can be potentially a sign of a skin condition. if you've got a cat who's vomiting hairball every day, then it's possible that the kitty is over-grooming because the skin is itchy. Something else to talk to the vet about.
All right, but 3 times a month, having 2 fairly long-haired cats who are, productive despite or along with their brushing, I would say once a week, maybe a little more often depending on whether they've, tried to eat a receiver or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, I don't know, it just seems like it's part of the cat program. Yeah,
I mean, if you feed them, I don't know what the what the difference is with short-haired cats. Why some of them have hairballs? It's possible that they just don't have the motion in the stomach, the peristalsis, to move the hair through. I have had one long-haired cat, long-haired gray, in my life, and he only had a hairball, once every couple of months, 2-3 months, something like that. But I know other cats, even short-haired cats, sometimes will vomit more frequently. If they're vomiting and not a hairball is not coming up, then chronic vomiting is not normal for cats and should be investigated.
Right. All right. I had a hairball producer, but then I had a vomiter, and that's it's just you really have to see whether something's in it.
Yes.
And also, cats eat plant. I guess while we're on the topic, cats tend to gnaw on certain things sometimes, like plants and whatnot, and they will throw that up too. No.
Yes.
So, probably worth mentioning to Ryan.
Yes, but it's. I think that 3 times a month is absolutely fine if you're seeing a hairball. Just a warning to other out there: if you're not seeing the hair and your cat's becoming a chronic vomiter, then that isn't normal. And cats tend to not, unless it's a super high fiber food, it's unusual for a cat to eat too quickly and vomit. It usually means that there is a hypersensitivity to something in the food.
Okay. That's a good one, because you want to put for the column of old understood for the column for the old-fashioned column. The cat ate too fast and threw up is a classic.
Yes.
All right, Nate in Waterbury. My wife and I have 2 dobies, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. Do we need to be putting them on flea medicine even though they're not socializing with other dogs like they used to? We are talking about giving them a break from frontline while we're all social distancing. We don't trust the info online because most of what you read about fleas has some corporate sponsorship behind it.
And that is very true, and this is a good question, and I think that it depends on the risk that you're willing to take as far as getting fleas in your house. So dogs will potentially pick up fleas in the environment, but they don't, it's not going to be rampant fleas jumping around on the lawn. They don't live that long outside. The dogs will tend to collect fleas from going into people's homes. So if you know that you don't have any fleas and you've been using flea products for a long time, then it's unlikely that you would have unhatched eggs in your own home. So playing with other dogs, being around cats, going into anyone else's home, those are potential ways to collect fleas. The cat flea, the name is Tennocephalitis felis, is the most common domestic flea. It's just somehow named after cats, but it lives on dogs as well, and there's about 50 other different animals that this flea can live on. So raccoons, weasels, possums, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's possible that your dog can pick up fleas from lying, number one, rolling in a dead animal, lying in an area that has, that a dead animal has been dragged from or an animal has slept in, that kind of thing. So you kind of have to weigh your risk versus benefit. And if it's a very slight risk because your pet's only going on the lawn and is in your house and you never have anyone come over with their pets and you never go to anyone else's homes, then you probably have quite a low risk for having fleas. So if you're willing to take that risk, then you can give them a break. that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. In Waterbury, I just, once you've got, if you've got flea PTSD, it's really good to be able to give them a break, especially, I'm just saying this, from those products but.
It is, but this is also, the big but is that this is also flea time of year,
right.
flea proliferation time of year. And so my dogs, even on leash, they are all over all the dogs we meet on trails, and they are running up against them and playing, sometimes my younger dog. So, do I want to take the chance of them picking up fleas and having that explosion in the house again? So you need to make that judgment on your own.
Right, and you've got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, so we'll leave that to you because you're probably younger. But that's definitely a judgment that depending on how much you've been through it and so forth. Are there any natural? Are you still finding that frontline alternatives or Vectra? Do you are you a frontliner or do you?
Well, hardly anybody uses frontline anymore. At least that I encounter. Because it doesn't work as well, and as far as ticks go. So we want tick protection for our dogs that are out and about at all. If you've got a 5-pound teacup-sized poodle that only goes outside, only hits the ground when you're out on the lawn, then you don't have to worry so much about ticks and putting something on that dog, but a lot of dogs are out there, and even in the low brush, we want to have good tick protection. And so there isn't anything natural that really works for ticks. There are things that work for insects. The insects that can cause biting and hypersensitivity reaction, especially underneath the belly. You can use one of those organic, all natural sprays. They only last about a half an hour, though, and you don't want your dog licking it off every day either. But you can put it on up around the ears, et cetera, when you're going on a hike to help with the deer flies. But as far as fleas, the Dr. Dobius, what's it called? Tick Hex.
Tick Hex.
Yeah. I've talked about Tick Hex before on this program.
I think that there's Flea Hacks also that they can.
Is there?
Yeah. And there was some issue around it, but just because they're in Canada, but they're all natural. And I have found that wiping, I'm not the best sprayer honor in the world, but I find that spraying it onto like a paper towel, for example, and wiping the dog down before we go out has been reasonably effective.
The Tick Hex?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it smells terrible.
Yeah.
So, if you have the time to make considerations about your pet, then that's great. You want to make sure they're protected when you go out and about. Most people now, because they don't have the time to think about that, and because most of the products are quote unquote safe as far as we know, then most people are actually using the oral flea and tick prevention. It works great, and it seems to be relatively safe. Products like Bravecto, the afloxolon, or as they're called. It's a whole new group of flea and tick oral preventions.
Okay, and what about that? The Seresto collar?
Seresto works well too.
Okay.
A lot of people are using Seresto. Many people don't like an extra added collar around the neck,
right? Or
to be touching it for long periods of time.
So,
but I think it's still working great.
All right, so there are options.
Yes, you can use a topical between the shoulder blades, like Vectra, or Frontline. You can use an oral once every 3 months is Bravecto, every 12 weeks. And then NexGard, Credelio are monthly orals, and the Seresto collar. Those are the best.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cannon. You have surpassed expectations, as always.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
This has been Pet Files Ask the Vet, underwritten by the Millerton Veterinary Practice, 518-789-3440, millertonvet.com.